So hey anime fans, the series name is What If Naruto X Hazbin Hotel, so let's start the series. With every stride of his hooved boots echoing down the cavern they were in, Moxie said, "Are you sure about this, sir?" He gripped the revolver tightly since they could hardly see through the almost otherworldly blackness. The sinner who had hired them had offered them so much money for this job that he could never turn it down, even if he refused to tell them who he was going to kill, just where he was. "Oh shut it Moxie, we got a job to do and I have expenses." Blitzo muttered the last part as he led his team deeper into the cavern. "She was more alert than usual," Millie remarked, "still, this is a weird place for a target." Something about this place made her hair stand on end. Knowing that he had used up the last of their funds on his hobbies and that this job paid more than enough to get them into the green, Blitzo responded, "So we snuck into the basement of some abandoned temple on the side of a mountain in a creepy forest in Japan, who cares? Money is money." Before they came to the bottom of the stairs and entered a huge room, Moxie said, "Sir, I think this is more than a basement." "All right. I know you're in here. Come out and we can make this quick." Blitzo smirked as he raised his rifle, ignoring his employee. A surge of heated wind drove the three imps back, and they were unprepared for the deep growl that rocked the earth they were standing on. Twin-slitted blue eyes opened in the darkness and rose into the air, but then a huge set of sharp white teeth was revealed. Blitzo swore, "What the fuck is that?" as the beast roared and blasted its back against the underground temple's stone walls, causing lanterns to come to light all around the room. "What in tarnation?" Millie exclaimed in a terror, as she was the first to recover and see their target, a giant golden fox with 9 similarly long tails. It was bigger than even the largest creature she had ever seen in Wrath. Blitzo commanded Moxie to discharge his assault rifle on the beast, pointing it at its head and firing his sniper at the fox's face. "Who cares? Shoot it." As it sat back with the bullets bouncing off its golden fur, it almost seemed to laugh at them. "You know, I wasn't expecting to wake up again so soon," the fox stated casually, obviously not taking any of them seriously. "Fuck." Millie swore as a tail encircled her and raised her into the air as she dashed with her axe at the enormous creature's feet, trying to cut its heels but the axe breaking on impact. Moxie shouted, pointing at the golden beast, "Millie, put my wife down." It grumbled, "Geez, just put the damn weapons away and no one has to die." And casually threw Millie at Blitzo with a tail flick. A bazooka struck his face, but it just served to annoy the monster. He stared at the demon in the eyes and saw it laughing down at him, its murdering intent dominating the room. "Book it!" Blitzo yelled. "Ha!" Suck on the dash, a huge claw dropped down just next the bigger imp, almost crushing him in a single second, freezing the demon in horror. A portal opened on the ground in front of them as the three imps fled towards the exit, Blitzo frantically phoning his phone and yelling, "Portal now," as the fox moved to follow them. The three jumped in and went back to hell without turning around. A gray-furred female hellhound, somewhat alarmed by the three's level of terror, questioned, "What's going on?" Blitzo commanded, "Just close the portal, Luna." A figure emerged from the opposite side, revealing a tall, human-looking male with spiky blonde hair and 2 rabbit-like ears poking out. Behind it, 9 golden tails swayed gently. The man was tanned with 3 marks on each cheek, and he wore an orange kimono with a red swirl on its back. The portal started to close, but before it could, 2 clawed hands emerged and gripped the edges, causing sparks to fly from the portal as it was forcefully stretched open. With his arms crossed and a frustrated expression on his face, the blonde asked, "First you wake me up, then shoot at me, and you think you can run away like nothing happened?" He seemed to fill the room with the sense of being in front of overwhelming power, and Luna thought to herself, "Who the fuck is this?" She was annoyed that she didn't know what was happening and her fur stood on end. She also thought to herself, "Damn, those arms are jacked." He introduced himself to the Hellhound and stated, "Name's Uzumaki Naruto, but just Naruto's fine." Blitzo responded, "Okay, so what do you want then Naruto," thinking that perhaps this time, talking was a better course of action. The blonde said, "It's Naruto. And I wanted to know why exactly you guys tried to kill me." Blitzo responded, "We were hired to, by some monk dude, eager to end the engagement. That asshole again, I thought I killed him." Naruto sighed and grimaced as he heard that a monk was attempting to have him killed. Luna handed him the file they had created for his case and stated, "You did, and he wanted us to kill you in return, but he declined, indicating that he didn't really need to know more about what they intended." Naruto stated, "Look, just call the job off and I can pay you guys in some way," understanding that they had nothing against him and were merely performing their duties. Blitzo responded, "I don't know, he offered us a lot of money for your head," emphasizing that the sum of money they would receive would be significantly greater than what they often earn. Granted, it wouldn't be worth it to die at the hands of this monster. He demonstrated his strength by saying, "Then how about a deal? If you're ever in trouble, I'll come save your ass, trust me when I say I can hold my own. Back when I was human I beat a guy who cut the moon in half." Naruto added, drawing a blade to his hand and pressing it against the table. "I'll even throw in a free katana." "Deal," concurred Blitzo, who hurried to the blade and pulled it out like a child on Christmas. He didn't want to jeopardize his or Millie's lives trying to complete the job, but he couldn't stop the facepalms since his boss abandoned them for a sword and the promise of future assistance. Their shots didn't work against him, and he didn't think that would change any time soon. Naruto muttered, "So this is hell huh?" as he gazed out the window at the red-tinted underworld sky. Based on the angelic aspect, he thought he saw something in the sky that was heaven, and he needed to investigate it before returning to Earth. Blitzo slashed his desk in half with the incredibly sharp blade and said, "Yeah, better than that musky game of yours huh?" Naruto laughed and rolled his blue eyes. "Yeah, guess you can say that," he replied, turning to face the four. "So if someone died, would they end up here?" he asked. Blitzo responded bluntly, "Yeah, if they were a piece of shit in life." The blonde questioned, "Like if they killed people?" Moxie responded, "It's hell, you can guarantee that anyone who killed anyone is down here," acknowledging that many sinners were condemned to hell for killing someone in their lifetime. "Most of them live in Pentagram City," he noted. Naruto could feel hundreds of millions of souls in the metropolis as he gazed out into the distance. It was an abyss of misery, suffering, and corruption. He pondered perhaps Blitzo couldn't finish in time, so Naruto jumped through the window and broke it as he fell to the street below. "Motherfucker!" Blitzo swore at Naruto for breaking his window, and by the time he saw him, Naruto had already been hurrying to Pentagram City. "Anyway, let's get you back to Earth dash," Blitzo shouted at him from the smashed glass, pointing to his new gift, "You're lucky this sword is badass." His own father had killed thousands of people, and he felt a little bad about leaving the group without saying much, but he had to find out if his friends and family were still there. They were shinobi in real life, and that kind of life made people do all kinds of terrible things. He believed that after he passed away, he would be reunited with all of his loved ones in the pure world. However, He was unable to escape purgatory, and although he eventually found a way out, it wasn't what he had anticipated. He was resurrected as a nine-tailed fox that looked like Kurama and was extremely strong. When he left, however, time had changed in purgatory, and the world he had known was gone. Chakra as he understood it was no longer the subject of folklore or specialized spiritual practice. Shinobi and ninjutsu were now taught to civilians using smoke and mirrors, and everyone he had known and loved had long since passed away and moved on. He made every effort to assist mankind in the thousands of years since his return. While some saw him as a demon who brought disaster, others saw him as a god who bestowed prosperity and good fortune on those who merited it. He attempted to conceal the nature of his life, but given how many secrets he had to keep hidden, it made any connections he forged feel phony. Nevertheless, he was always by himself. It was difficult to connect with others who regarded him as something more than human. "Hey, watch where you're going, bozo," someone yelled as he hurried past him to put boards over his door. He soon realized that everyone appeared to be getting ready for something, boarding up windows and hurrying to their homes. His senses expanded outwards to try and sense anyone who felt familiar. Hell, he'd even take Orochimaru or Madara over no one at all. Naruto asked the demon, who gave him a confused expression, "What's going on? Why is everyone boarding up their houses?" Before returning to reinforcing his home, the man remarked, "You daft. It's fucking extermination day. Now stop wasting my time." As he proceeded to stroll through the streets of the city full of sinners, Naruto said again, "Extermination day?" He appeared to be the only creature not in a panic and noticed a huge clock on a tower that was slowly ticking away. "Attention all citizens, that extermination day is starting in 10 minutes. I encourage all of you to spend the day watching all of our lovely programming," the demon said as he passed an electronics store, and then it changed to a comedy about cannibals. Puffing out of existence, he said, "Sorry but I have to go." A slaughter. As he guarded the city, he saw that. His golden tails waved slowly behind him, as in response to the melancholy he was experiencing. He pushed back the tears that threatened to spill from his fox-like blue eyes and whispered, "Is that why I couldn't sense you, Hinata?" He hadn't seen his wife from his human days for a very long time and had been hoping to see her again, but those expectations were rapidly dwindling. The loss of loved ones and the frantic fight for survival, betrayals everywhere, the blonde's senses picking up the unpleasant vibes that pervaded the city and becoming stronger, the dread that filled him. This place was in excruciating pain. It reminded him of how people felt in his day long ago, but it was a different era, and although people had evolved a lot since then, they had also changed very little. The sound of the angels' retreat and their return to heaven through a gateway in the air interrupted his thoughts. He wanted to follow them, but he felt compelled to glance around and find out what was happening. Why were angels here killing sinners? No one gave him any attention as he explored the devastated city, but he couldn't help but feel horrible as he jumped down to the blood-covered streets and passed body after body as people started to emerge from their hiding places. The angelic structure close to the city center, however, caught his attention. It appeared as though a piece of heaven had been dropped into hell, and he was perplexed since if heaven was present here, they must have been aware of the exterminations. He knew that heaven was supposed to be the guardian of all that was good, so why were they sending angels down here? Why were they killing people before they could even speak? At that moment, he noticed a golden blood trail that led into an alley. As he followed it, he saw a tall, blonde woman with pale skin and red circles on her cheeks. She was dressed in black dress pants and a red suit top over a white button-up shirt. The injured woman had short, ashen hair, gray skin, and a pinkish eye. Her clothes, which included a white tank top with 2XS on it and a white skirt over black shorts, looked worn out and dirty. The wounded woman grabbed her firearm and rushed in front of the blonde, shouting, "Get back. I'm not here to fight, I just don't know what's going on and feel you could use some help," he said, raising his hands in an attempt to appear as innocuous as possible. He waited for her to drop her weapon before moving closer. "Name's Uzumaki Naruto," he added, introducing himself to them. "Vaggie," the gray-skinned woman said, a little hesitantly. With a slightly clumsy, "Hey, I'm Charlie," the blonde stuck her head over the one-eyed woman's shoulder. As he walked up to the two, Naruto grinned and said, "Here, let me try and heal you," reaching up toward Vaggie's eye with a golden-orange flame on his hand. The girl flinched at the sight of his glowing hand, but his calm smile and the intense pain she was experiencing helped her relax a little at the idea that he could ease it. The pain of having an eyeball gouged out left her as soon as the orange glow touched the spot where her eye used to be. A moment later, the sensation vanished, but the pain didn't come back. "Thanks," she said softly, appreciatively, for the relief. "Sorry, I wish I could remake your eye," he said, assuming that whatever had removed her eye must have had unique characteristics that made recovery more difficult. "But I was able to stop the bleeding at least and heal it so it won't hurt as much," Naruto politely informed her. It seemed like only a few hours ago that Vaggie was on top of the world, one of her peers' top performers, and now here she was, abandoned and alone. "I should get going, I have to find a place to rest that isn't a dumpster," she muttered, appearing rather depressed at the state of her life. "Well, if you two need a place to stay, I have a hotel. I would love to have some guests," Charlie said with a smile after glancing between the two. "I would like that," she said nervously to Charlie as she looked at the ground, knowing that she had nowhere to go now that her commanders had betrayed her, that she couldn't go home, and that she didn't know much about hell other than the fact that it was full of demons and sinners, people she didn't particularly trust. But when she looked at the golden-haired angel, she realized that there was something that set him apart from ordinary winners. Knowing that he needed to learn more about what was happening here and what had happened to his loved ones, Naruto answered, "I don't know about staying there, but I could use a nap. And if you could tell me more about hell, I'd appreciate it." "Great!" exclaimed Charlie, thrilled that she had at last secured guests for her hotel. Although it was still a work in progress, she was confident that everything would work out with a little perseverance. Joyful Hotel. Charlie led the two in and gestured grandly to the dilapidated lobby of the building, saying, "Welcome to the Happy Hotel," when a cockroach landed on Naruto's head. With a flick of his head, Naruto exclaimed, "Wow, it looks homely." With a broad smile, she informed them, "I know it's not much to look at, but soon this place will be where sinners from all over Pentagram City come to be redeemed." Vaggie had never heard of a sinner being redeemed into a winner after being condemned to hell. Naruto simply assumed they remained there indefinitely, while Vaggie knew that the exorcists would eventually eradicate them. "Redeemed?" the two newbies to hell inquired, unsure of what she meant. Charlie told them, "So I was thinking that what if instead of heaven coming down here and killing sinners to control the population, we instead tried to make them better people so they can get into heaven?" She yelled, "Yes," as she bounded over to them and pulled them to a whiteboard with several sloppily drawn pictures. Naruto, who had never heard of this cycle back in heaven, questioned, "Wait, go back, I've been confused since I got here, heaven comes down here and kills sinners." Vaggie briefly paused, and Charlie gave him a wide-eyed stare in return. "Wait, you didn't know about the exterminations?" she inquired, speculating that perhaps he had just passed away and was unaware of what was happening. But what happens to the people who are killed by those angels? I'm new around here. Proved to be sufficient to appease them for the time being, since a new demon wouldn't be aware of what was happening, especially if they arrived in the midst of it all. They're gone, for good, she replied candidly as Charlie turned away. I see, Naruto muttered as he processed everything, sitting down on one of the destroyed couches. Your plan will help stop this extermination, the blonde asked Charlie, who nodded vigorously. Naruto's shocked expression told a whole story as his hopes of seeing the people he knew in life were completely shattered. Lucifer's daughter joyfully said, yes, when he inquired further about her plan to rehabilitate sinners. You see, if there is no overpopulation problem, then there'll be no need for exterminations, she continued, displaying a photo of a group of happy individuals in heaven and hell. Vaggie responded, I'll join, stroking the cloth that covered the area where her eye had been. She had been deceived by her leaders for showing charity to a sinner demon, but as far as she knew, he was only a child and never had a fair chance at life. In addition, it would stick it to Adam and Loot. Charlie grinned broadly at her, thrilled that someone would want to accompany her. Same, he said as he stood up, his face resolute, determined to save those who still had a chance to enter heaven even if he couldn't save his people who had been cast down to hell. If there is even a chance that someone could be spared and make it to heaven, then they should have it, Naruto said, knowing that this wasn't right. Everyone deserves a chance at forgiveness. Charlie yelled, "Yay," and gave the two a bear hug. As he took Charlie in his arms, Naruto smiled sadly. He knew that he would probably never be able to bring back the people he had lost, but at least he could stop future souls from being destroyed in the same manner. So what now? He said. Since the hotel appeared to be on the verge of collapsing and it would require a significant amount of work to bring it in operational condition, she declared, now we start getting this place in shape. Not again, she exclaimed as a wall collapsed behind her, bringing down the upper level as well. Again, the two asked simultaneously. The hotel may need a bit of work here and there, she replied, trying to hide the fact that the building was in such poor condition that it was practically collapsing. But that can wait until tomorrow. How about we get some food? Charlie laughed uneasily at the question. Is there ramen in hell? He asked, wondering if his favorite food existed in the dark half of the afterlife. Naruto perked up at the suggestion, having not eaten a proper meal in a long time and having napped for the past 10 years in an attempt to kill time after the world had shifted away from the supernatural and more toward science. His temple had fallen into disarray because no one came to visit and the family that looked after it had died during World War II. Charlie said, I'm sure we could find a place, in an attempt to cheer up her new acquaintance. Based on the enormous smile on his face, she could tell that ramen was one of his favorite cuisines. He exclaimed with an odd degree of fervor, even in hell, the food of the gods still reigns supreme. As Blitzo described the events of his mission and the strange fox person who had followed them into hell, a bird demon slammed his head against a table. The demon was a golden fox with 9 tails, and he was wise enough to know of only one creature that fit that description, a Tenko. Stolas screamed, Blitzo, I can't believe you tried to kill a Tenko of all things. Why didn't you do more research on what you were sent to kill? He was aware that he might end up in trouble if it were discovered that someone or something from outside of hell had entered and was wandering around unattended. A what? Inquired Blitzo. Stolas emphasized how dangerous this creature could be, saying, a very very powerful spirit that doesn't belong to heaven or hell, they are unpredictable, strong, and smart, and you just let one into hell. He didn't think Blitzo had any idea what a Tenko was, let alone a kitsune or yokai, but from what the Goetia knew, they were similar to gods. You need to find him, before someone important notices him, Stolas commanded, pacing around and glancing at Blitzo. And if he refuses? The imp knew that he couldn't do anything to the supernatural fox, and his entire team had been putty in his claws when they first confronted him. Blitzo perspired at the high-ranking demon's firmness on the matter. He knew he made a mistake by accepting the job, but he didn't anticipate it would be this bad. Then you call me and I'll deal with him. Stolas replied, pinching his beak. And then I hope I can convince him not to do anything stupid. To the dismay of the two women seated across from him, Naruto exclaimed, "Ah! Ramen, it's been too long." How many years had passed since he had a satisfying bowl of ramen? It was painful for him to see people around him but not be able to speak to them as equals because he had long since resigned himself to avoiding human contact. Charlie hoped she wasn't being disrespectful when he said, "So, how did you die, Naruto? If you don't mind me asking." To the blonde princess's amusement, Naruto hummed, with noodles dangling from his mouth. "Oh, I don't really remember." Vaggie questioned, "Really?" "It's only been a few hours," speculating that perhaps sinners had forgotten how they died. "Oh. You think I died recently?" Naruto said, his eyes widening as he understood the uncertainty, before he laughed and said, "I died I'm going to say, at least 10,000 years ago." Purgatory made it hard to tell time. 10,000 years ago, the two exclaimed simultaneously. Given that Naruto shouldn't have taken so long to appear in hell, Charlie questioned, "Then how are you just getting to hell now? Perhaps he fell from heaven like her father?" The blonde with whiskers boasted, "I showed them what happens when you mess with the wrong kitsune," recalling the beating he inflicted on the three imps who had woken him up because they had been hired. "Oh, I followed some demons from Earth, stupid idiots tried to kill me," he said, complaining about the three imps. Wondering, "Wait, you came from Earth?" Vaggie, "Yep." "So what are you?" inquired Charlie. "Okay, so I died a very long time ago, but instead of being sent to heaven or hell, I was reincarnated as what the Japanese call a kyubi no kitsune, a bit ironic since people accused me of being one my whole childhood when I was human," he said, aware that it was somewhat amusing that people in his village thought of him as the demon fox, only for him to transform into one after death. He felt he should clarify his situation to them since they were unsure of what he was. "That's so cool!" Charlie cried, astonished by the idea of native supernatural beings that she had never seen before. She believed that humans were the only inhabitants of Earth and that there were unique demons that weren't native to hell. Naruto bemoaned, "I thought that maybe in hell I could find my loved ones, but guess they must have been exterminated a long time ago," realizing that it would be pointless to cling to the notion that he could still be able to locate his family here. "So why stay?" Vaggie inquired, and the two appeared devastated by his remarks. He was honest with them, saying, "I think people deserve a second chance. My loved ones may not have gotten one, but I know they would have wanted me to help others get one if possible." He seemed to radiate kindness in a way that no one in hell could hope to match, with the possible exception of the woman. Ugh! Slitted blue eyes opened, irritated by the light that woke him up. The bed he had been given was comfortable, or at least more comfortable than what he had grown accustomed to in his old abandoned temple in Japan. The morning light pierced through his window and directly over his face, rousing the blonde kitsune spirit from his sleep. When was the last time he'd slept as a human? It was too early to consider such matters. His 9 tails swished behind him, creating a dust cloud, and orange energy swirled about him, creating a black suit with an orange undershirt as he got up and walked up to the mirror to see his nude form. A clone of him appeared with a quick sign from his hand, saying, "Clean the room," before leaving a deadpanning clone behind. "This place needs to be deep cleaned." He sighed, knowing that his room probably hadn't been clean in years due to the hotel being abandoned with the exception of Charlie and now him and Vaggie. Vaggie was there when he got there, staring into a cup of coffee, and the flooring creaked with every step he made down the stairs toward the lobby. "Something on your mind?" Naruto said, sitting on the other side of the sofa and calling out a cup of sake. "I don't think that's how you heat up coffee," he joked, approaching her with a kind smile. He noticed her dark look become a little uncomfortable at being interrupted in the middle of her thoughts. She answered, "Just thinking about how I got here," with a forced smile. He could see that she was trying to maintain her optimism, but she wasn't lying. The blonde remarked, "I guess people never expect to end up in hell." Assuming she was angry that she had been brought there in the first place. "You can say that again," Vaggie muttered as she took a sip of her coffee. Unlike Charlie, who was born here, or Naruto, who chose to be here, she was compelled to be here. Adam had condemned her to hell. Adam, what a jerk. The cup broke in her grasp. "Are you okay?" Naruto inquired, his eyes widening slightly at the unexpected outburst of rage, fearing that she could have injured or burned herself in the process. Vaggie stood up and looked at her coffee-stained clothes, which were her sole apparel. Her lone eye enlarged at what she had done. I'm fine, sorry, just a lot on my mind," she muttered. "What was that?" Charlie said as she entered the room in baggy pajamas, her hair untidy and out of her ponytail. She noticed the broken mug on the floor and Vaggie drenched in coffee. Vaggie acknowledged, "I got a bit too in my head, haha." Vaggie grabbed the garment from Naruto's hand and immediately noticed how smooth the fabric was despite being constructed from his energy. "Here," Naruto replied, his energy whirling in his fingers to form a kimono. "Go change into this," he offered, knowing that she had nothing else to wear. Vaggie said, "Thank you," before heading to the bathroom to change. He murmured to Charlie, "I feel bad for her," his face lowering as he considered the silver-haired woman more. "But guess that's why we gotta find a way to redeem people," he said, holding up a saucer of sake before gulping it down. "It's people like her that I believe deserve a second chance," Charlie said, nodding her head in agreement. Vaggie was, in her opinion, a wonderful person who, although she must have done something to earn her place in hell, didn't deserve the chance. Vaggie questioned the two blondes, "Would we be able to go shopping today?" She wasn't sure she'd fit into anything Charlie would have in her closet and didn't want to ask Naruto to create her clothes every day. Charlie, eager to start working on Vaggie's redemption, said, "Of course. It could be our first outing. We'll get you to heaven in no time." When Vaggie heard that Charlie was planning to send her to heaven, she froze. She knew it wouldn't happen, but she needed somewhere to stay, so she said, "Right." Naruto continued, "Plus, if he was going to assist people here, he needed to understand what he was dealing with. This would be a good time for me to get to know hell, or at least this part of hell. I'll go call the limo." Charlie summoned the 3 happy hotel inhabitants in a limo, and Naruto watched as creatures of different sizes and kinds lived out their lives in hell. It was almost like Earth, but a little more chaotic. Since sinners couldn't be killed without the use of angelic weapons, he witnessed a lot of them suck. He also witnessed the occasional murder or mugging, or at least an attempted murder. Charlie saw the scowl on Naruto's face as he peered out the window and said, "I know some people can be a bit rough around the edges, but I promise you that there's good in them." Charlie replied with a smile. "Don't worry, when I was human I met quite a few people who people thought were unredeemable but changed their ways later on," he promised. "My best friend tried to kill me more than a few times before I got through to him." Vaggie said, "Your best friend tried to kill you," and arched an eyebrow. He laughed and exclaimed, "Yep. Bastard shoved a lightning-covered fist through my chest." He had long since forgiven Sasuke for that altercation, which wasn't their final one but definitely set the tone for their subsequent ones. "Humans can use magic?" Charlie asked, unaware that such a thing was possible. As he considered his response, Naruto hummed a little. "A long time ago they could, most people now can't," he said, assuming that some people were still capable of doing supernatural things, particularly if they called upon demons for assistance. The world was different back then. Naruto continued, remembering how the world had changed since his death. The two women pondered in silence what sort of life Naruto had led prior to his demise, particularly whether it had led to his transformation into a fox spirit rather than being consigned to either heaven or hell. Naruto questioned the one-eyed warrior, "What about you, Vaggie?" She reasoned that she must have had a story of some kind if she had ended up in hell. Knowing that she would have to either tell them the truth and run the danger of their negative reaction, or lie to them about her past, she responded, "I really don't want to talk about it." "Fair enough," the blonde shrugged, unwilling to delve further than Vaggie felt comfortable sharing with them, before noticing the imps who had initially opened the portal that ultimately led him to hell. They appeared to be searching for someone, displaying a crudely drawn image of him. "Hey, maybe you two should go on without me," Naruto suggested. Charlie wanted her fellow blonde to stay with them, so she questioned, why?" "Well, what if Vaggie needs underwear?" he inquired, causing the one-eyed woman to flush. "See, she might not be comfortable with me around," Naruto noted. "I concur," mumbled Vaggie. After giving Charlie a pat on the head, Naruto produced a paper tag and said, "See you later." The fox spirit then instructed them to slap this on any surface if you need me to come quick. Vaggie accepted the paper. They were shocked as Naruto disappeared in a whirlpool of leaves and wind. After searching for hours and finding almost nothing about the blonde fox, Blitzo said, "Ugh, where the fuck is this asshole?" How difficult was it in hell to locate a golden fox spirit with 9 tails? There was only one down here, he was fairly certain. "Behind you," Naruto said, approaching the three who were pointing their weapons at him. "Come on, really?" he asked, knocking the guns away with a tail before they could even consider firing. "I came here to talk, not fight, but I'd gladly go for a round 2 if we need to first," he offered, not being against beating the three if it meant they would listen to him. Blitzo responded, "No. I think we're good," preferring to avoid a conflict with Naruto if possible. His question was direct, "So why are you three looking for me?" The shorter of the two male imps said, "Well, you see, sir, we were told to bring you back, to Earth, in the hopes that the fox spirit wouldn't exact revenge on them." "Sorry, but I can't go back to Earth right now, I found something I need to do down here," Naruto said, sighing but shaking his head. He had vowed to help Charlie try to help the inhabitants of Hell get to heaven if they made an effort to improve themselves. He didn't want to have to call Stolas to aid them with their predicament, but he realized that there wasn't really any way he could make the blonde return to Earth with them. "Yeah, that's not gonna fly, bucko. Stolas was very clear that you had to go back home," Blitzo stated. "I told you, I'm staying. If this Stolas person wants to make an issue of it, he can come here himself," Naruto said firmly, narrowing his gaze. A bird demon appeared behind the three imps, like an owl in royal attire with a capped top hat and two red eyes. "They were merely following my direction," he stated as the three stepped aside for him. "Please don't act too harshly towards my associates," remarked an eloquent voice. Assuming that this was the demon that had sent I, M, and P after him in order to bring him back to Earth, Naruto questioned, "Stolas, I presume?" "You would be correct," Stolas remarked, bowing slightly. "My name is Stolas, Prince of the Ars Goetia," he said. The blonde Tenko said, "Naruto," and extended his hand to the demon. Although he wasn't really pleased that they intended to send him back to hell, he didn't have to treat them badly. While the fox spirit scowled, Stolas attempted to explain that he was being judged for what he could do rather than what he intended to do. "A pleasure, but I'm afraid I must insist that you return to Earth. Please understand that a being of your magnitude can severely affect hell. As a prince of hell, I cannot allow you to stay here and risk the security of the whole realm," Stolas said. Naruto said, "Look, I get it, but I promised Charlie that I would help her, and I can't help here if I'm sleeping in some cave on Earth," after for the first time in a long time finding a task that felt meaningful to him. "Charlie? You don't mean Charlie Morningstar, do you?" Stolas asked, the fear of discovering who Naruto had contacted already beginning to creep up his feathered back that he sought clarification. "Yeah, Princess of Hell, daughter of Lucifer, wears a cute red suit, that Charlie." "Fuck," mumbled Stolas. Although it wasn't as horrible as Naruto joining forces with Lucifer, this was nearly the worst-case situation for the Goetia, who had hoped to get to Naruto before he encountered someone who might essentially thwart his attempts to return to Earth. "Naruto. You have my credit card," she added, recalling that Naruto had kept it after she nearly allowed a sinner to use it to purchase narcotics. "Oh, Prince Stolas, what are you doing here?" Charlie said as she ran back to him, observing the owl demon conversing with her new colleague. Charlie inquired. "Simply put, he wanted me to go back to Earth," Naruto said. "Oh," Charlie remarked with a dejected expression, "will you return?" With her face downcast, she questioned him, "Would you like me to?" He repeated the question, "No." With a smile, Naruto turned to face Stolas again and said, "You got it." Stolas sighed and made the decision to put it on hold. If he was working with the Morning Stars, it was already beyond his control. He only hoped that his family would be safe in case things went wrong. To the best of his knowledge, the only people who could actually control the blonde were the royal family or perhaps one or more of the Sins. Glaring down at Blitzo, Stolas said, "Very well, though given my involvement." He asked, "I would appreciate it if you came to check in with me around once a month," considering that he should at least watch Naruto in case someone came with questions. He needed to at least appear as though he was accepting responsibility for his actions. "Oh." Developing feelings for the blonde, Blitzo nudged Stolas on the side and inquired. "No way in hell," with a moment of terror on his face, Stolas responded, praying that the object of his desire didn't truly believe he was attempting to get someone else to sleep with him. "I'm not into dudes anyways," Naruto said, adding that while he may have been kissed by a handful in his youth, it was all a mistake. Blitzo's phone started screaming at that point, telling him he had a call. "Hee loony," he said, seeing that it was his adoptive daughter who had been on the other side. "What a job." "Millie." Moxie. We're heading out. After shouting at the other two, Blitzo hurried to the van and sped back to their headquarters. We're not finished yet, Blitzy, Stolas cried out, urgently needing his grimoire. Well, I'll be right back. It's necessary to shoot a bitch. As the other two imps excused themselves and hurried after their boss, Blitzo replied only that. So they just kill people? Naruto asked, turning to face Stolas, not sure how he felt about letting them go on their own. He asked the demon. Stolas responded, I mean, yes, but they typically deserve it, I think, in the hopes that his favorite imp would be alright. I'll keep an eye on them. I do owe them a favor for getting me down here, Naruto said, grinning at Charlie, humming and creating a clone of himself before sending it after the three. His life had been meaningless for some time, so finding something worthwhile to do was worth traveling to hell for. Only a few hours had passed when his clone burst, warning Naruto of what had been happening with the imps back on Earth. It appeared that the individuals they had targeted were cannibals, or at the least, members of a family of cultists who had taken them hostage. While he cleaned the hotel with his clones, Charlie and Vaggie went out to try to get some sinners to come work on themselves. Naruto transported to the Earth where he had felt his clone pop itself, thinking, I guess it's time to cash in that favor. He was in front of a house with a huge hole blown through one of its walls in a flash of golden light. He could feel the negativity seeping into the place. It smelled almost as strongly of bloodlust and malice as some of the demons in hell. As he passed through the hole, he saw that many of the decorations had been made from human remains. I should burn this place to the ground after I save those guys, Naruto told himself, sensing that one of the imps was in the house while the other two appeared to be in the forest. The skins were stretched and leathered, and the cushions on the chairs had faces on them, probably from previous victims of whoever lived here. If left unattended, locations like these were destined to become havens for various evil entities. He felt horrified as he kicked the door to the room where he felt Moxie. The room was filled with human remains and trophies, and the carcass of one of them was left on the table, adorned like a pig that was ready to be eaten. Naruto, Moxie let out a startled cry since he hadn't anticipated the Tenko's arrival. An additional toy, as he considered how he and his sister would have another animal to play with, the child added, his smile strained. He scowled in disgust at the cruelty and evil of these two kids, who had already been transformed into monsters out of human flesh by their parents' corruption. He was certain that the two had probably killed dozens of people and eaten an equal number of others, and he could sense how much they wanted to destroy his hope and display his tails as trophies. Naruto said, I'll give you one shot, surrender, while cracking his knuckles and sticking out his claws. He was already out of sight when the boy drew his pistol and aimed it at the blonde spirit. He felt something pierce his back and out of his chest, and as he looked down, he saw a hand holding his heart. Naruto took out the child's heart and threw it aside before turning to face the red-haired daughter who was holding Moxie at knife point. He was killed by you. When she witnessed her brother fall to the ground with blood streaming from his wounds, she let out a cry. The ease with which Naruto had murdered the youngster somewhat appalled Moxie. Knowing that the Happy Hotel could assist the child if he was prepared to put his evil ways aside, Naruto responded, he'll find a chance of atonement in hell, assuming he tries. Now, why don't you let him go? Fuck you. Ready to stab Moxie in the throat, she discovered a kunai pierced into her brain instead. He walked up to Moxie, cut the ropes, and remarked, sorry, guess you were too far gone, before the girl fell back. You okay? Looking around at the two dead people, Moxie nodded his head and stated, you killed them. His ideas of a happy family were shattered as he came to terms with the fact that the family he had prevented Blitzo from severing had nearly killed him. After throwing a shotgun into Moxie's hands and saying, "Come on, we need to get to the others," Moxie nodded before Naruto quickly pulled him up and smashed through the glass. Moxie, who wasn't used to moving as quickly as Naruto was, cried, "Ah!" When Naruto noticed a plump woman pointing a gun at Blitzo and Millie, who had been bound to a flaming fire, he said, "Oh!" When she turned around, he jumped up and kicked her face into the ground after yelling to catch her attention. Moxie, when Millie saw her husband in Naruto's grasp, she screamed. The male imp leaped to his feet and began to untie them. "Why are you in this place? Are you attempting to take our job?" Blitzo charged. After recovering from the kick, Martha muttered, "Another sacrifice to our Dark Lord," as she stood up, blood streaming down her face. Naruto mumbled, "God, her tits are huge," just before Moxie shot the woman in the face from behind him. Moxie responded, "That was for threatening my wife," feeling the need to atone for his error at the beginning of the trip. "Well done, Mox." Blitzo looked at the ghost, who rolled his eyes before he saw the husband trying to slink away as they celebrated Martha's passing. "You're still not getting paid, and neither are you, Blondie," he remarked. "Where are you heading?" The man scowled as he saw Ralphie's life of evil and cult-like devotion to human sacrifice in service of his Dark Lord. "What?" Naruto asked, appearing in front of him and lifting him into the air by his neck. With a flick of his wrist, Naruto killed Ralphie and dropped the body. He followed them back to the IMP office, where a cake was waiting for them, after realizing that Blitzo had summoned the portal to send them back to hell. "You succeeded, Moxie," Millie rejoiced because she was pleased that her husband had taken action and shot someone when he had previously hesitated. Blitzo joked, "He finally learned how not to fuck up, and that if someone tries to kill you back, it's okay to kill them." As she sliced a piece of cake for herself and Moxie, Millie continued, "That's fucked up, but I paid for it," someone said before the laughter broke out. "And I didn't think you would just snap the guy's neck like that, Naruto. Damn you." "It was badass, to be honest," Blitzo told the blonde, who rolled his eyes. The blonde responded, "He was evil, he needed to die," before turning to face him. "If you ever want to give redemption a chance, miss, try visiting the Happy Hotel," he said, hoping to recruit someone, and admitted that although her soul was tainted because she had killed her husband, it was not nearly as bad as some of the other people in hell. "I'll give it some thought," she said, grinning appreciatively. As the celebration went on, Naruto went up to Luna, who had gone off to have a beer alone away from the others. "Hey there," he said, joining her, and he gave her one of the 2 beers he had. What are you looking for?" Unsure of how to behave with the fox spirit, Luna asked. She couldn't help but think he was attractive, he just seemed to exude a sense of strength that made her hair stand on end. Leaning on the wall next her, he murmured, "Nothing really, just figured you could use some company." After giving Naruto a thorough examination, Luna sighed and whispered, "You what you want." As he approached her face, Naruto grinned and said, "Are you certain you want that?" Naruto asked, her face going crimson red at how close he was to her face. Naruto held his gaze before bursting into giggles, "Sorry." Apologies. Unable to maintain the performance, Naruto stepped away and apologized. Luna snarled, "You asshole," and punched him in the shoulder. "I apologized. But I was thinking of maybe dropping by here and there, plus I'm new to hell and figured it would be good to make some new friends," Naruto told her candidly, laughing. He couldn't help but think she was cute. The 4 people here seemed like wonderful people, albeit slightly insane. Luna mumbled, "Whatever," before sipping the beer that was offered to her. "Why must I perform this task?" Luna inquired as she and Naruto distributed flyers for their separate businesses in Pentagram City. Luna was distributing flyers for Blisto's business, while Naruto was to welcome sinners to the Happy Hotel so they might strive toward redemption. After explaining the purpose of the flyers he had been handing out, Naruto sighed and said, "At least people are taking yours." It turned out that most, if not all, of the demons down here had already accepted their situation and didn't want to waste time trying to be better when they could be having fun. He couldn't really hold them responsible because there was no concrete evidence that Charlie's plan would succeed, no one had ever been saved, and sinners didn't have the luxury of being native-born demons either. Sinners knew that unless they rose to positions of authority and influence, they would eventually perish at the hands of an exorcist blade. So why even bother? At least he's bearable to be around, Luna thought as she turned away, her tail almost touching one of his 9. If she had to do this with Moxie, she might have blown her head off. Want to exchange? Perhaps the answer is having a cute hellhound distribute them, Naruto said, offering to switch jobs. Awesome, with her cheeks burning crimson through her fur, she yelled back. Naruto stepped back and said, "I'm sorry." He attempted to explain to the hellhound, "I didn't mean to offend you, I just meant that perhaps people would be more receptive to hearing from you than from me." Luna responded, "I don't know about that," as she couldn't help but notice the looks the blonde was receiving from both male and female demons. She enjoyed the way she came across as somewhat distant, and it saved her time from having to put up with fools. "What are the other 3 doing, then?" he inquired because they hadn't returned to the office when he visited. Luna was on her phone and holding a stack of papers that Blitzo had left for her to distribute and post throughout the city. She had originally intended to simply throw the flyers in the shredder and call it a day, but she gave in when the blonde asked if she wanted to accompany him. Not caring about what the 3 were doing, the hellhound told him, "They're protecting some owl dude or something at some crappy amusement park." They were making money, and that was what mattered in the end. Besides, it provided her a peaceful day away from them and with her new blonde buddy. "You mean that guy from Stolas?" He was kicked in the shin as he asked. She growled, "Shoo, it's a secret, so that no one would know that Stolas had been working with I, M, and P." She was well aware that many of their operations were unlawful, and she didn't want the Heavenly Fox to spread the news. Although Naruto wasn't particularly disturbed by the kick, he did admit that it was a delicate matter, and Stolas probably wouldn't have disclosed their relationship to him if they hadn't been directly accountable for his presence. Charlie was aware of it as well, but she wasn't particularly involved in the more political aspects of hell, and he didn't think she would tell Lucifer. Charlie's relationship with her father wasn't the best. Before tossing the remaining papers in the garbage, Luna took a look around. Perhaps someone would come looking through them, but she didn't care at this point. "Wanna attend a party to which I was invited?" she smiled nervously as she asked. Since Vaggie and Charlie were busy today, he thought it would be all right for him to mingle a little. "Okay," he said. I haven't been out to a bar in a long time, assuming that the last time he had a decent drink was in Japan when a Susanoo person had begged him to help get sake so he could battle a monster snake. At the time, he didn't want to get engaged with that. When he accepted his invitation, Luna's ears pricked up. "Really? You mean it?" She had intended to travel alone, but she wouldn't mind if the attractive blonde wanted to accompany her. She asked to be sure he wasn't teasing her. "Yes. It's been ages since I attended a party." Excited by the possibility of attending a party, Naruto said. Luna had changed into a strapless black dress with a pentagram on it, and Naruto had used his power to change his clothes into something more appropriate, wearing dark blue jeans and a black t-shirt that hugged his body, as they exited the taxi that had taken them from the Pride Ring to the Gluttony Ring. Luna couldn't resist taking a few quick peeks at Naruto's physique. Although he wasn't particularly large, his body appeared to have been well trained, so he wasn't skinny. The celebration was already in full gear when they got there. Naruto said, "Wow, this place is packed," as the two entered the structure, which was crowded with imps and hellhounds of all shapes and sizes. Since she wasn't used to being around so many demons, let alone having someone accompany her, Luna rubbed her arm. "Is that Luna?" "It's me. Get out of the pound." A short pit bull-looking hellhound came with 2 bottles of beer in hand. Looking up at Naruto, the hellhound offered one of the 2 drinks to him. "That your date?" he inquired of Luna. "Yes, no. I mean," Luna said, uncertain of what to say, so she reached for the bottle and downed its contents. "Whoa. Someone is making a hasty attempt to catch up," Fid chuckled, assuming Luna was merely eager to get to the celebration as soon as possible. Naruto arched an eyebrow at Luna's peculiar actions, but he simply assumed that she was anxious due to the large number of people around her. Cheers! It was sweet and much stronger than what he had previously tasted at the Mission Success Party, Naruto told Fid before taking a sip of his own. "We have a lot of Beelzejus on tap, so I hope you can handle it," before being summoned by another set of hounds, he stated. Naruto called out to the secretary, "Hey Luna." "Yes," she exclaimed as she straightened up, fervently hoping her 9-tailed friend wouldn't overhear her calling him her date before she corrected him. Luna was a little surprised by Naruto's willingness to help, but he nodded his head and said, "Good, now let's go get another drink." Naruto grinned and caressed the top of her head, saying, "I'm here for you, so relax a bit, okay?" As the gray and white hellhound held a pitch of liquor to her mouth and chugged it till the last drop went down her throat, the entire crowd appeared to chant, "Luna! Luna! Luna!" The crowd praised her success when she finished. She was having the time of her life, and Naruto had fulfilled his promise by staying by her side the entire time as she gradually opened up to others. She had no idea how much time had passed since she and Naruto arrived. Her face was crimson and her vision was fuzzy, making it difficult for her to walk. She staggered to Naruto, who was observing, and fell into his arms. "Soi," she muttered as he helped her regain her equilibrium. After drinking so much, he was worried about her and inquired, "You okay?" Looking up, Luna's white eyes met his anxious blue ones. "Yeah, I am," she murmured, balancing herself with a palm on his chest. "How about we hit the dance floor, and get you another drink," she said, sensing that he needed more. The fox spirit answered, "Sure thing," as they made their way to the dance floor and found a space where they could move around. A waiter with a tray of drinks passed by, and Naruto grabbed one while they were dancing. Luna smirked and twisted around as Naruto drank. His eyes widened when he felt a toned ass rubbing against his groin and a tail wrapping around his waist. Luna took the initiative to grind on him, biting her lower lip as she felt him expanding through his jeans. When he said, "El Luna," she reached back and put her arms around his neck, leaning against him until they were in close proximity. She murmured, "Your scent drives me mad," as she circled her ass over him. As other demons began to gaze at the two, Naruto remarked, a little bashful, "Hey, people are starting to stare." The scent of alcohol was still fresh on both of their breaths as Luna turned around and placed her chest against his, grinning up at him. "Then give them a show," she muttered into his ear before unexpectedly kissing him. Luna groaned into the kiss, tasting the alcohol in Naruto's mouth, and Naruto lost his strength as he found himself reacting to her advances. His tails were wrapped around her as they made out. As one of the partygoers pointed them out, "Whoa. Looks like Luna is making her move." Luna was too engrossed in her own reverie to be bothered or ashamed. Another female hellhound screamed, "Get that bone, girl." As everyone dispersed and began to shove the two into an empty room before shutting the door, someone else said, 7 minutes in hell," to the applause of the gathering. "Everyone make way. Get these two a room to get their freak on. Woo-hoo. You're going to horny jail. Gods, you're hot," Naruto moaned as he felt her grinding her hips against his member as the two staggered onto the bed, Luna on top of him. Their tongues met in a fierce war as their bodies crushed against one another. Naruto flipped them over and then retreated from her. She grabbed a bottle by the bed and drank more alcohol before giving it to Naruto, who shrugged and drank the horrible concoction. "Are you going to fuck me or wimp out?" she questioned. Naruto growled into her thoughts, "Are you sure you want this?" but then felt a clawed hand cup his erection over his trousers, massaging it until it became hard to hold inside. She responded sharply, "Fuck me," and her hand lifted her dress to reveal her damp black underwear. She groaned as Naruto ran a finger over her covered folds, feeling his fingers softly but not sufficiently to pierce her. "Don't you dare tease me," she snarled. A hand reached up and grabbed Naruto's head, fingers running through the golden locks before bringing him down for a kiss, stifling her groans. Naruto moved her panties to the side, 2 fingers slipping into her. Luna's breath caught when she felt something enter her back arches as she felt his finger pumping in and out, her fluids beginning to flow. Naruto pulled his hand out, broke off the kiss, and removed his pants, throwing them aside before forcing Luna's legs open. Luna held her legs back, allowing Naruto to enter through her lower entrance. Luna's eyes opened as she felt herself spread wide open as he swung into her without hesitation. It took her a moment to adjust to his size, but Naruto was already moving in a matter of seconds. "Fuck. Fuck me harder," she commanded, wanting the blonde to plow her more, as she felt every stroke of his, the broad head of his member burrowing deep into her body and striking at her core. Her back arched as waves of pleasure swept from her hips and breast, and she let out a cry of, "Ah," when his mouth cupped one of her buds and she felt his teeth crushing down on it, sucking and biting. "Fuck, fuck, fuck," she muttered, her brain exploding with pleasure as each thrust, suck, and grope pushed her closer to her climax. Naruto warned, "Shit Luna, I'm gonna come," as he released her nipple and swayed his hips violently against her. The party outside the door is now only a faint memory as they feast on each other's bodies. "Don't you fucking dare pull out," Luna snarled, staring at him. She desired to feel his seed inside of her. As Naruto rushed toward his own, each thrust came more quickly than the last. Naruto locked lips and thrust himself into her, causing Luna to scream with delight as his seed shot into her, filling her sacred chamber. Her howl reverberated throughout the room, likely alerting everyone at the celebration to her arrival. There were faint cheers coming from the other side of the door. As he completed creaming her, his member slipped out of her, and Luna reclined against the headboard, inhaling deeply as she descended from her own euphoria. He groaned as he stood back up, "Fuck Luna. You think we're done yet?" Luna asked with a sly smile as she rolled over and protruded her ass in his direction. Naruto laughed as he approached her. "Well, I didn't want to assume," he said, his thoughts muddled by passion and booze. She yelled, "So just shut up and put it back it already," as Naruto thrust his entire member into her once more. From this stance, she could feel it piercing her more deeply than before. After warming her lower lips with the previous round, Naruto began to move, laughing, and said, "You talk a big game. You asshole," she groaned, pushing her ass back in time with his thrusts. Her claws held onto the headboard, and as she thrust, her nails dug into the wood, sending a chill through her mind. With her other hand on her hip, Naruto grabbed her hair and held it back, causing her head to jerk up. Every sound Luna made was music to Naruto's ears, and he wanted to go deeper into her than ever before. She gasped, her tongue hanging out of her mouth, her eyes glassy and rolling back in pleasure, and she howled when she felt a harsh slap to her ass. Luna left little to be desired, and it had been a long time since he had slept with a woman. Her snatch clenched around him, gripping his manhood from all sides as though pleading for it to never leave. Every time their hips swayed, the bed moved. Luna smiled as she pushed off the headboard and placed Naruto on his back. She bounced her ass on his manhood while gazing back at him with passion in her eyes. Luna murmured as she felt his fingers caress her legs, so close, she told him, quickening her rhythm, and the blonde saw Luna's back ripple every time it came down on him. Her tail was wrapped around his neck for support. As she approached, Luna screamed once again and squirted across Naruto's lap, catching the intruder in a clutch with her chamber. As Naruto painted her insides white with his milk, she felt a feeling that filled her body with joy once more. "That's the spot," she said. "You've been released from horny jail." When Naruto and Luna came down from their high and realized what had happened, they stood at the back of the party and watched as the hellhound lit a cigarette and put it in her mouth. Luna looked at the blonde and offered him the cigarette before taking a puff. After responding, "I don't smoke," Naruto sighed, "so." "I mean, I liked it," Luna said. Yeah, it was a little awkward that everyone could hear them fighting, but at the end of the day, it was hell and things like this never happened. "What? You didn't?" she said angrily. "I mean, it was great, I just didn't expect to end up like this," Naruto informed her candidly, rolling his eyes. He had anticipated attending a party and having some fun, but never that much fun with his friend. "Same, but I'm not upset," she responded, hoping that things would work out in the end. Being immortal had its benefits and disadvantages, particularly when your brain was still somewhat human. Naruto was still processing what had happened as he watched her smoke the cigarette. He had not been with a woman for a very long time. "Same, it's been a lot of work lately, it was nice to cut loose for a bit," Naruto said, feeling as though he needed a break. He had been working extra hours at the hotel to keep everything clean and reasonably stable while also looking for customers. Luna thought that since he and Charlie spent so much time together, they could wind up dating, so she said, "Why not ask the princess?" "Well, I just met her and I don't exactly like rushing things," Naruto said with a laugh. "Like we did? The drinks here were different from the ones on Earth." At this point, most of the alcohol on Earth didn't affect him, but the liquor from hell was different, made for demons that were also resistant to drugs and such. Naruto nudged her in the gut and gave her a sidelong glance. "We're drunk and got wrapped up in the moment," he replied. "So we were just a moment?" she inquired, a little offended. He retorted, "Depends, do you want it to just be a moment?" Luna remained silent for a while as she considered what he had just asked her. She acknowledged that their activities had been impromptu, but she had invited him and initiated the encounter because she was attracted to him. "I don't think so," she answered, feeling a little too exposed for her comfort. She had no true friends, was accustomed to being by herself, and her family consisted only of that dumb Blitzo. "Then it doesn't have to be," Naruto smiled and said, "Do you wanna see where things go?" She started to say, "I think I dash," but before she could finish, her eyes widened. She turned her head away from him and hacked as a green liquid sprayed out. Naruto hurried to her side to hold her hair back while she vomited. He remarked, "I guess someone had too much to drink." When she was done, she hissed, "Fuck you. You already did." As he waited for Luna to get home, Blitzo tapped his foot. She hadn't come home yet, and it was past 2 in the morning. When he attempted to contact her phone again and was routed to voicemail, he mumbled, "Ugh. Looney, where are you?" He heard a knock on the door before he could try again, so he hurried over, ripped it open, and pointed his rifle at the person on the other side. "Huh, Naruto?" he asked, then noticed a sleeping Luna in his arms. Both of them were heavily scented with alcohol. "You have 3 seconds to tell me what happened before I blow your brains out," he said, his eyes narrowing as he felt protective of his adopted daughter. Rolling his eyes, Naruto grabbed the gun with one of his tails and lowered it. "We were at a party and she drank a bit too much," he said as he entered the room, observing that it was obviously hers. He brought her inside and tried to put her in, but she was holding on to him too tightly. He said, "Hey Luna, it's time to go to bed," and shook her away. Luna cooed, Stay here with me." He persuaded her to let go by saying, "Sorry, but I gotta go," and then he put her in bed and covered her with a blanket before exiting the room to discover a rather agitated Blitzo. "So, care to tell me what happened?" the imp asked, tapping his meal to get the blonde to leave his daughter's room. He knew he couldn't take on the blonde, but by God's grace, he would try if he caused any harm to his daughter. Naruto didn't lie when he said, "We went to a party and got a bit too drunk," but he didn't tell Blitzo the whole truth since he wasn't sure how the imp would respond if he revealed that he and Luna had slept together at the party. The last thing Blitzo needed was for Luna to get wasted and end up lost or stranded at the party, so he sighed and narrowed his brows before saying, "Well, thanks for bringing her home safe." He was thankful that Naruto had at least brought her back here. In response, Naruto remarked, "Well, I gotta get back to the hotel, see you later, Blitzo," exhausted from a late-night party. Hopefully, he didn't keep Charlie up too late, worrying about his whereabouts. He thought he could use the extra assistance finishing some of his marks, so he shouted, "Oh wait," as he ran after him. "We got a huge caseload coming in tomorrow for spring break, figured you could come with us." At the request, Naruto arched an eyebrow and pointed to Blitzo, who rolled his eyes. "I'm not really into killing people, and what if you try and leave me stranded back on Earth?" he said. Blitzo responded, "Please, as if your godlike ass doesn't already have a way back here," understanding that someone as strong as the nine-tailed fox who came before him would have no trouble finding a means to get back to hell given that he had already arrived here once. Damn, already catching on. I must be losing my touch. Naruto grinned broadly, knowing that even if Blitzo abandoned him on Earth, he would still have left a mark at the hotel that would allow him to instantly return to hell. He also left a mark at the IMP base, but no one needed to know that just yet. Blitzo explained, "Ugh. Well, there are going to be a lot of people there and maybe a few demons too, I figured we could use some muscle just in case shit hits the fan, you know. He didn't really need assistance killing humans, but he was aware that it was also prime time for other demons to pursue humans. Although they were fairly skilled with weapons, they were still imps in the end. And encountering the incorrect monster might seriously harm them. He said, "I'll see if I'm free," and then he disappeared. Luna was cuddling against her pillow when Blitzo turned to check on her. Harder Naruto," she groaned in her dream, which made the imp's smile disappear. "Naruto,